Respected speakers, Mr. Muhammad Syahmi Dzulkarnain, Manager, Stakeholder Engagement, and Ms. Aini Fatimah Ahmad Kamal, Advisor on Research Data Management and Liaison Librarian, Monash University, Malaysia. Respected Brother Yusrina Abu Bakar, Acting Chief Librarian, Darul Hikmah Library IUM, Academic and Researchers, Library Top Management, Senior Management, Heads of Unit and colleagues from Darul Hikmah Library IIUM, ladies and gentlemen. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi ta'ala wabarakatuh, and a very good morning. To gain the barakah of our webinar, let us start with lafaz Bismillahirrahmanirrahim, and let us make dua to Allah to bless our event and hope our session today will be beneficial to all, inshallah. Ladies and gentlemen, we are broadcasting from International Islamic University, Malaysia, and on behalf of Darul Hikmah Library, we would like to extend our warm welcome and thank you to all participants for joining the webinar on Research Data Management at Private University, Monash University, Malaysia's Experience. This webinar is organized by Darul Hikmah Library IIUM, and I am Irni Izwa Abu Bakar, will be your moderator for today's webinar, inshallah. The purpose of this webinar is to provide awareness about research data management, RDM, to the IIUM community, to share the Monash University Malaysia's experience in putting RDM in place. Ladies and gentlemen, before we start, I would like to make a few housekeeping announcements. Firstly, participants may fill in the attendance. The link is provided at the YouTube and Zoom chat boxes. Participants are free to post questions in the chat box at any time during the presentation. We will read the questions during the Q&A session. If you are on the Zoom platform, you may also ask questions verbally during the Q&A session. This webinar will be recorded and can be viewed via the official IUM Library YouTube channel. There will be a photo session at the end of the webinar. Participants at Zoom may turn on their cameras and use the virtual background provided. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, it is our great pleasure to welcome our speakers, Mr. Muhammad Syahmi Dzulkarnain and Ms. Aini Fatimah Ahmad Kamal, to share their knowledge and expertise about RDM at Monash University, Malaysia. Assalamualaikum, Mr. Syahmi and Ms. Aini.
Waalaikumsalam.
Waalaikumsalam.
Okay, Alhamdulillah. Good morning.
Morning.
Okay, allow me to introduce our first speaker, Mr. Muhammad Syahmi Dzulkarnain. He is a manager, stakeholder engagement at Monash University, Malaysia. His main role is to provide direction for the academic services team in regard to research support and scholarly communication for the academic community at Monash University, Malaysia. While our second speaker is Ms. Aini Fatimah Ahmad Kamal. She is an advisor on research data management and liaison librarian at Monash University, Malaysia. She provides research support and scholarly communication for assigned schools at Monash University, Malaysia in the form of workshops, consultations, and e-learning resources. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, presenting to you our speakers, Mr. Syahmi, then followed by Ms. Aini. Okay, Mr. Syahmi and Ms. Aini, please welcome. The floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you, Ms. Aini, for the excellent introduction for both of us. So let me just share my screen first.
Okay.
Okay, hopefully everyone can see my screen. Yes.
Yes.
Okay, good.
Yes, we can.
So first of all, I would like to thank the organizers IIUM for inviting both me and Aini to share our experiences regarding RDM to the IIUM community, as well as other researchers. Also, I would like to thank the participants, the audience for joining us as well. I think Ms. Aini already let you know regarding our roles and position in Monash University Malaysia Library. I act as a manager and Aini acts as a liaison librarian for the assigned schools. So before we move on to the actual part of the session, just a quick note regarding our roles in terms of RDM. So we in Monash University Malaysia only provide advice on the best RDM practices, including how to use the Monash data repository, which we'll be showing you later, as well as build awareness about the importance of RDM to the users. So currently, we don't have any internal requirement for Monash University researchers to lodge a formal data management plan or deposit research data. We actually don't have like a specific committee or specific unit that focus on RDM, but later on we'll show you how, for both me and Aini, we present our information regarding RDM to the users. So if you do have any questions regarding our experiences regarding Monash, please do put it in the chat, and later on at the end of our session, we will feel free to answer your questions then. All right, so let me just move on to the first part, which is just a little bit of introduction about our team, which is the academic services team, where, as you can see on the screen here, we do provide the basic services and options for students to either join or use. For example, the skill development program, where we conduct the usual general library workshops as well as the unit embedded workshops. So this is, I think, very common among all the universities and colleges. We also provide consultations in person or via Zoom, as well as currently developing e-learning resources in the form of online modules, video tutorials, as well as quick guides in the form of PDF formats so that students can download for offline use. So this brings us to another program that the library is involved with, which is the Monash Doctoral Program, where it is a PhD designed to prepare graduates with the skills and capabilities for their research projects. And this program is actually governed by a different department, not from the library, which is called the Research Excellence Unit, or REU. But some of the workshops being done in the Monash Doctoral Program is being delivered by the Library and Learning Commons. And this program, like I said, focuses on developing the researcher skills for graduate students, but for PhD and masters for research students. The workshops that we conduct normally focus more on those who are just starting their research journey, where they sort of have an idea, but they need a little bit more pushing regarding how they continue their research journey, as well as don't know where they want to store their data collection. So they will attend this program. So we do have like a few programs delivered by the library where we have the standard research skills programs, for example, the advanced literature search, publishing strategy, as well as the research metrics. But of course, we want to focus on the research data management, which is the maximizing your impact through managed data. This is what the title is called for the Monash doctoral program. And this is our main medium on how we convey the information to the students in Monash. So if they want to learn more regarding RDM, then they will have to attend this Monash doctoral program, which is also, when they attend, they are awarded with credit. Whoops, sorry. Okay. All right, so this workshop, the maximizing your impact through managed data, is conducted by both Aini and I. And Aini acts as the main facilitator of the workshop, while I'll be doing the backup, as well as I do have a section in this program where I teach explain to the researchers on how to use the Monash data repository, which is Bridges, which I'll be showing you later on. And yeah, so we do, but we also promote this topics to the academics as well, in terms of consultations. If they want to know more regarding publishing strategy or RDM, we do provide consultations for those academics as well. So now, since I mentioned that Aini is the main facilitator for this program, I will pass this to Aini so that she will explain to you what are the content that she has. She will let you know regarding the things that we let the students know in RDM workshop for MDP. So Aini, I will pass it to you.
All right, so thank you very much, Syahmi. Assalamualaikum, everyone. Thank you very much for taking some time off to join us via this live session. So without further ado, let me just share my screen so we can get to see what I like to share with all of you, right? Okay, let's begin. Okay, so earlier on, Syahmi was already explaining what we do as liaison librarians in Monash. So right now, what I'm going to do for all of you is I am going to share what we actually do for or with our students during the MDP sessions, right? So in order for you to actually, understand why and how we share this, let me just share something interesting with all of you so you have an idea to why we do this, right? So the first thing that I'd like to share with all of you is there is a video that we use to show our students in class. It will only take about 4 minutes, give and take, right? But what I want all of you to pay attention to is when you watch this video, put yourself in the place of the character if you were to ask for data from someone, right? So let me just show this. Let me know if you can hear it. I'll just put it to full screen and let's enjoy. Wait, let me just stop sharing for a while because I think I did not share sound, right? Correct. Great. Okay, I'm sorry, my bad. So sit back, relax, and do enjoy the video. Okay, it's not playing. Okay.
Hello. My name is Dr. Dzulkarnain. I'm an oncologist at NYU School of Medicine.
Hello, Dr. Dzulkarnain.
I read your article on B-cell function. I think that I could use the data for my work on pancreatic cancer.
I am not an oncologist.
I know, but I think I could use the data for my work on pancreatic cancer. Do you have the data?
Everything you need to know is in the article.
No. What I need is the data. Will you share your data?
I am not sure that will be possible.
But your work is in PubMed Central and was funded by NIH.
That is true.
And it was published in Science, which requires that you share your data.
I did publish in Science.
Then I am requesting your data. Can I have a copy of your data?
I am not sure where my data is.
But surely you saved your data.
I did. I saved it on a USB drive.
Where is the USB drive?
It is in a box. It is in a box at home. I just moved.
But can I use your data?
There are many boxes. So many boxes. I forgot to label the boxes.
Hello again. Thank you for sending me a copy of your data on a USB drive. I received the envelope yesterday.
You are welcome, but I will need that back when you are finished. That is my only copy.
I did have a question.
What is your question? You might find the answer in my article.
No. I received the data, but when I opened it up, it was in hexadecimal.
Yes, that is right.
I cannot read hexadecimal.
You asked for my data and I gave it to you. I have done what you asked.
But is there a way to read the hexadecimal?
You will need the program that created the hexadecimal file.
Yes, I will. What is the name of the program?
Cytosynth.
I do not know this program.
It was a very good program. The company that made the program went bankrupt in 2007.
Do you have a copy of the program?
I do not use this program anymore because the company that made it went bankrupt. Maybe you can buy a copy on eBay.
I have good news.
You again.
I talked to my colleague. She knew a person with a copy of the software.
Then why do you need me? Everything you need to know about the data is in the article.
I opened the data and I could not understand it.
If you have the program, you will find it is clear.
Well, I noticed that you called your data fields SAM. Is that an abbreviation?
Yes, it is an abbreviation of my co-author's name. His name is Samuel Lee. We call him Sam.
I see. And what is the content of the field called SAM1?
Ah yes, SAM1 is the level of CXCR4 expression.
And what is the content of the field called SAM2?
That is logical if you think about it.
What is the content of the field called SAM2?
I don't remember.
What about SAM3? Is there a guide to the data anywhere?
Yes, of course. It is the article that is published in Science.
The article does not tell me what the field names mean. Is there any record of what these field names mean?
Yes. My co-author knows what the content of SAM2 is, and SAM3. And SAM4.
Can I talk to your co-author?
I'm not sure.
I would very much like to talk to your co-author.
Well, he was a graduate student. He went back to China 2 years ago.
Can I have his contact information?
He is in China. His name is Sam Lee.
I think I cannot use your data.
You could check the article to see if what you need is there.
Please stop talking now.
Very interesting video, Miss Aini.
It is interesting actually. So when we play or when I play the video for my students, most of them are really irritated because imagine if you were in that situation and you needed to use the data. So that is why we start off our class with this video. Why? To set precedent, to set the tone to our students that remember, if you were to go through this particular information or this particular situation, what will you do or how will you handle this, right? So in order for them to understand the importance of research data management, we show them this scenario. If this happened to you, what would you do? So for example, in the video, we understand that you see that person did not know where he placed his video and he only had one copy. And the software that he used was not available anymore. So imagine if we, as researchers, we have to go through that. And when we need that data and we know that data is important, what do we do, right? Okay, so this is why when our students attend this class, we show that this video serves as a reminder to our students, what if this happened? And we pose important questions to them. It's like we have a discussion. We tell them, okay, if this were to happen to you, what would you do? How would you react, right? So the students will be like, yeah, I think this is why it is important for all of us, to have proper disaster management. Oh, sorry. Sorry. Okay. So this is why we tell our students and our researchers, it's like, this is the reason why research data management is important. Okay. Next. So upon watching that particular video, we provide them this particular basic understanding, right? For the case of data management, if your data is well organized, so what happens if you have well organized data? We make them understand that your quality of data is good, right? People can use it, right? And if your data is well documented, what happens? It's not just for the person that needs to use your data in the future, it's for yourself as well. So we make them understand that if your data is well documented, you will be able to find your data, and that data is easy to share and people will be able to reuse that data. But bear in mind, whatever that I'm presenting today is, I always make sure that my student understand this one point. You are only allowed to share your data up to a certain extent. Not everyone can share their data. So I give them a heads up, or I give them a note of reminder that even though you want to share your data, but if you are not allowed to do so, you cannot do so. But what I'm trying to share with all of you today is, we want our researchers to have an understanding. We want our researchers to acknowledge that if you have proper data management, you yourself as a researcher, the person who needs to use that data, will be able to use it as and when he or she needs it, right? So we also make them understand that if your data is well preserved, we understand that as researchers, credibility, we want citation, right? That is why we have research matrix, we have researchers profile and everything. We have ORCID ID, we have everything that once, it's like we want to showcase our research. So if we are allowed to share our data and it is well preserved, people will be able to cite us. People will be able to use our data. All right. And then, for example, if our data is accessible. So imagine in the past, based on the video that you just watched, only that particular data is only accessible through cytosine. Do we have that? We don't have that. So what happens if your data is not accessible, if you cannot interoperate your data? All right. So for example, if you feel that your data is accessible and we understand that in the future, people may need to use your data, so we're actually helping fellow researchers to save their costs. We already have data that is available, which is, credible. So why does someone, have to go through this very same process when we already have that data? Right? And last but not least, we make our researchers understand that if their data is verified as to accuracy and validity as a researcher, so you are actually carrying out your duty as a researcher and you're actually fulfilling your responsible code of, conduct for researchers. Okay, so at the end of the day, when our students go through this particular session, we make them understand, or we make them realize, you need to understand the reason why you're collecting this data. You also, we make them understand that as and when you collect their data, you need to uphold the principle of fair data. Right. So I believe most of you have seen this during the previous session with University Malaya. So fair data is an important principle for all researchers to follow, or for all principles to uphold. Why? Now, very simple. We should understand what is fair data first. So in our session, during our class session, during the consultations that we have, we make sure our researchers understand that what is fair data, right? So we understand that FAIR, findable. We make our researchers understand that even if you cannot find your own data, what more other people, right? If you cannot understand your own data, how can other people find what you have online, right? So if it's findable, we understand that the metadata and data should be understandable to humans and machines. So humans being, it's like meaning, whenever you share that data, you have the metadata, you have that code book, or you have a description to explain what your data is all about. right? And then we understand that when you have a set of final data, that data should be deposited in a trusted repository. So in Monash's case, we make our students understand that we do have a trusted repository, and that platform is called Bridges, like Syahmi mentioned earlier, right? And we also make our researchers understand that your data should be accessible. Accessible here means that particular metadata or that particular data uses a formal or accessible, it's able to be shared and broadly applicable language for knowledge representation, right? So technically what we want our researchers to understand is that your particular data should be accessible to anyone and machine, right? Number 3, interoperable. So what do we mean by interoperable? When we watched the video earlier, remember that that particular data can only be accessed by cytosine, and that cytosine is not available anymore. So what do we do, right? So we make sure that our researchers understand that their data and collections have a clear usage license. So meaning it's like your data is not under copyright, or if it's under a certain license, how can you allow other people to use your data, and how can you reuse other people's data? So technically what we're doing over here is we're making our researchers understand that you yourself have data, and in the future, maybe during your research, you will also need to use other people's data, right? So please make sure that your data should be interoperable, and you understand that the origins of your data can be traced, right? And last but not least, the most important thing for a researcher, if you are allowed to share your data, you want people to be able to reuse your data, right? So technically, they should be able to find it. They should be able to access it. They should be able to interoperate that particular data or any data that they want to use. And last but not least, that particular data should also be reusable. People can reuse that particular data, right? Now, all right, so this is where we start going into the body of the whole session, okay? So when we talk about research data management, we start off with letting the students know, okay, what is research data, right? We make them understand, because we have to understand the students or the people that we consult with are fresh researchers or postgraduates who are in their first year of study. So some of them, usually when we start the class, we'll have a poll everywhere. So in that poll everywhere, we'll ask the students, okay, how can you rate the level of your, knowledge on this particular subject, right? So some of them will be saying 1, 2, 0, beginner, intermediate. So we understand that as a whole, generally, they are not familiar, or maybe they're like, I don't have an idea. So what can we do? So this is where we start. So in this particular picture or diagram that you can see on my screen right now, I understand that the diagram shows that it's a cyclical, journey. But usually what we tell our students is this: you should always go back to your research question. You need to understand, what is your research question? Is there a certain method that you want to use to answer this research question, right? And then when you already have that research question, you know your subject, and you decide, okay, I need to collect my data now. Then we tell them, decide, do you want to discover, or do you want to collect new data, or you want to reuse other people's data? So this is where we tell them, you need to have a plan. So this is where we say, create a data management plan, right? So remember earlier on when I said it's either you discover, you collect new data, or you reuse other people's data. So this is the most important part that we emphasize to the students. In order for you to manage, because we understand that managing active data is an active, ongoing process until you say that, okay, this is my final data. So what we tell them is, you need to have an understanding, you need to know what type of data you'll be collecting. So for example, how do you manage that data? Number one, we make them understand, you need to know the file structures and the formats that you're going to collect, right? So if you do not know what you're collecting, how can you start? How can you plan? So we make them understand you should know your data first. Second, we make them understand that how are you going to control that particular version of data? We understand sometimes when we collect data, there are discrepancies, something is missing, it's redundant. So how do you control that version of data? So all of these questions, we prompt them is because we want them to have questions. So if you already have an answer for that particular question, it's good. But what happens if you do not have the answer? What do you do next, right? So we make them understand that, and we tell them, okay, when you collect your data, what do you have to do next? You have to back up. Okay, how do you back up? Where do you back up? How many? So we give them the proper, it's like we explain to them. So the best way that you should back up your data is you should have 3, sources or place where you store, and you should back up daily or even weekly or monthly. And then we tell them, where do you store your data? If it's active data, do you like publish it? No. So how do you store it? So over here, we keep on telling them, we keep on reminding them, you should have a plan for all of this information. And if, for example, you are collaborating with someone to collect this data, how will you go about it? Will someone collect it with you? Will you collect a certain part and the other person collect a different part? So how do we go about this? So this is where we let our researchers know you need to know, and you need to have all these questions. Besides, when you have all these questions, it makes your life a lot easier when you want to carry out the certain deed, right? Okay, so after completing the managing the active data part, we move on to the archiving completed data. So what do you do when you have your complete data? Where do you store it? As in, it's like, how do you want to share it, right? So when you have the completed data, we show that when you want to, document it, how do you want to format it? Where are you going to store it? And establish your research integrity. So meaning it's like, are you allowed to share it? How sensitive is your data, right? And we make them understand that if you want to publish and share your data, you need to understand that you have to describe your data well, the metadata, right? So for example, if you feel that you need to describe your data well, or you want to share your data, how are you going to share it? Do you share it, do you share the raw data, or do you share the data as in when you're working with it? If it's raw data, right? But for example, if we've already archived that data, where do we get that DOI? So this is where Bridges comes in. So we inform and we explain to the students, we have Bridges, this is what you should do. You should always use Bridges, and you should, incorporate it in your research as and when you already have an archived or completed data. All right, so we make them understand that you need to apply a license. So in Monash University, and I believe other universities, if you feel that you need to copyright your data, please go ahead if it's copyrighted. But if you feel like you want to put a different license to it, so for example, the Creative Commons licenses, right? You need to understand, can I share this data? How do I want to share my data? So technically over here, what we do as librarians, we make sure that they know their options, they know their rights, and they understand what to do if I am stuck somewhere. All right, we make them understand that, at the end of the day, if you feel that you're stuck or lost in this data management plan circle, you can always talk to your supervisor, number one, and you always can come to us if you do feel that you need the extra help other than your supervisor. Okay. So if you do have questions, don't worry. Kindly, just collect your questions. We can answer it at the end of the session. All right. Now, moving on. Okay, so
Miss Aini, Miss
yes.
Aini.
Yeah.
Oh, Miss Aini, it is interesting that because you start with the DMP, the RDM with the students. So what about the researchers? The researchers follow the same method, the DMP and the RDM at Monash?
Okay, so that is a very good question. Thank you, Miss Aini. So what I'm going to show you right now is we do have policies for staff, and we do have policies for graduate research students. So this is where the policy comes in. So technically, our job right now in Monash, what I do is we do guide first year students, postgraduate students, not so much on the researcher or the ECR, the earlier career researchers, because I believe they are already aware of this. But if they do, ask for help and they come to us, we do, it's like give directions. So as you can see on my screen right now, we do have a page for researchers. So on this particular page, as you can see, we do have sections where researchers can go through this website. And if, for example, if you do have questions on profiles and IDs, meaning how to make ourselves more discoverable outside, right? We do have Bridges for data, and we also have a platform called Pure. So that is where we have for profiles and IDs. As for publishing and matrix, this is where we talk about research matrix. It's like researcher's profile. Publishing, it's like we also talk about, because we are kind of slowly going to the open access part. So this is where we tell researchers, if you want to learn more, if you want to it's like make yourself more discoverable, you can go to publishing as well. But for our research data management session, we let our researchers know that data collection and management is a part of a larger work, because we want them to understand. Because right now they're budding researchers, right? So we are trying to train them. You start from this first. You must have a basic background. Then you go into the rest of the information as researchers, right? So if you look at my screen right now, data collection and management. So under data collection and management, this is what the page looks like. So this is live view. So we have data collection and management. When we click this, under this particular page, we have the data management at Monash. So technically, when we click data management at Monash, you will find that we have 3 policies. So this is the main general policy for everyone, right? And we have research data management for staff and research data management for graduate research student procedures. So what we tell our researchers, or what we tell our students to do is, look, this session is like a cramped up session. What you can do as a researcher, you go home and you do your own homework, right? So what we tell them to do is, number 1, if you are a staff, so we get them to read this particular policy. So this is the general policy, right? So we do have this Monash University policy where it is written. We have, all the basic understanding. We give them advices, so on and so forth. But what you have to understand in Monash, like Syahmi mentioned earlier, it is not mandatory for them to submit their research or DMP plan to the university. This is something that is recommended, right? So technically, this is a very general policy for all of them. And this particular policy is for the staff and adjunct. So under this particular policy, we give them the guidelines on what is the procedure. It's like you should have this awareness, and you should also have your research data planning. So technically, this is what we teach our students as well. Ownership of copyright of intellectual property. You have to be able to determine who owns the data and who is the author. There's a difference to it, right? And then what are the ethical requirements that you're supposed to remember or you're supposed to abide by when you're doing research in Monash? And then, for example, when you have your data, your final data, how long are you supposed to keep it? Like Malaysia, based on the Malaysian Research Code of Conduct, we understand that for general information, you keep it for 7 years. But when it comes to gene expression, so on and so forth, it should be there for 15 years. So it's also generally the same as Australia. So technically, we make them understand that if you are Australian, you should follow this particular policy based on the Australian conduct. If you're a Malaysian, you should follow the Malaysian research conduct, right? And this is also the GRS, or the policy for our research student. So technically, in all these policies, we let them know that there is a policy that you should follow, right? So technically, these are the, sorry, I went a bit abroad. So these are the links that we share to the students. So technically, during class, we'll just show that, there is a policy you should follow, you should be aware of it. But what we focus during class is particularly this plan. Wait. Okay, I think I did not have that. All right, so let me just show you. Okay, so for all of you to know, or for you to understand, this is the checklist that we recommend our students to have or to follow or to fill in, right? So like I was mentioning earlier, this is the checklist that Monash follows. But again, it is not compulsory. It's just, it serves as a guideline. So what I tell my students to do is, during class, we show this particular checklist. And as you can see, it is mostly based on the Australian Code of Responsible Conduct, but also if you look at the policy, I will share this website later. You can just go through on your own. We show that for the Malaysian researchers, there is a Malaysian Copyright Act that you should follow, and you should follow the PDPA right as well. So technically, we tell our students that, right? So based on this checklist that I'm sharing to you, we let our students know, okay, if you already have a research title project, fill it in. Who is your chief investigator? By this time, or at this particular stage, they should be aware that these are all the important information they should have with them already, right? So technically, with the checklist, what we do is we start by, we have like major headings, right? Things that they should know. For example, we start with planning. So under planning, what this whole checklist does is we prompt them with questions. So for example, if there is a certain question and they know the answer to it, they'll fill it in. All right. So when they fill this in, they know that, okay, for example, what type of data is being collected or created? I know that I have to do, interviews, face-to-face interviews. I know there are questionnaires. So we make sure that if you already know what you're going to collect, fill it in. Make sure you are aware what you're doing, right? So technically, this is like a check and balance for them. Okay. All right. So next, for example, under the heading of copyright. So we ask the students, who owns the copyright? So what you have to understand in Monash is this. Students who carry out the research individually, everything, their thesis, data, it belongs to them. All right. So if it's a collaborative research, this is where we make them understand who owns the data. All right. If it's a collaborative, as in it's like the supervisor and the students are together in that research, so it belongs to the university. So we ask them questions. So if they are able to answer all these questions, we know that, yes, we already have an information, we have a sort of awareness. All right. So technically, this checklist really serves as a check and balance, as a prompting question for them to keep themselves aware. So as you can see as well on this particular page, we have links for all the important policies that students can use during their terms of research, right? So what are the ethics and consent guides? So maybe some students are not aware of that we have all this. So this is where we make them understand that, look, these are all the important guides. These are important information that you can get for you to carry out research in Monash, right? And then again, we understand, like I was mentioning earlier, not everyone can share their data. So what we are doing over here is we want our students to realize what you collect belongs to you. It's not that we want your data. What we want you to understand is you should be able to govern that data. You should be able to manage that data, right? So for example, if you need to share that data, we ask you, how sensitive is your data? If it's very sensitive, will you be able to allow to show it? No. So this is where the student should understand, okay, if it is public, then maybe I can share it, right? Even though sometimes my data is public, but my funder says you can only share it with us, can I still share it? You can't. So this is where we pose questions to them. You need to understand your nature of data and what your data can do for you and the university, right? So when we talk about storage, organization, and access, so we make our students understand that in Monash, Malaysia, we only have two options. Number one, Google Drive. Number two, Bridges. But Bridges, we don't actually recommend them to store active data because you cannot work on it on Bridges. You can only just park it there. So that is why we say, if you have active data, as much as possible, try to store it at somewhere or cloud, your own, it's a personal device. Until you know that this is the final data, you can upload it, you can have a DOI, and you can share it. All right. So technically, at the end of the day, what we are doing with the students in Monash, we give them understanding. We make them realize that there are things that you should follow. There are things, there are plans, there are steps that you should go through in order for you to continue or for you to manage that data properly, right? And documentation. So documentation over here, I pull their attention back to the video. Remember, if you don't document your data well, will you be able to find it? No. Will it answer to the pair principal data? Will it be accessible? No. So we make them understand, for example, if there is a certain metadata standard that they want to follow that metadata standard, right? So we make sure to realize, to remind them that the documentation part is also important for you to follow through, right? And when we move to sharing and publishing, so this is where we bring in Bridges, right? Bridges will be shown by Syahmi after this, but when we talk about sharing and publishing, this is when we introduce Bridges to our students, right? So as you can see, how will you share the data? So some students will be like, I do not know. Some students will say it's still too early in my research, journey. Maybe in the future I'll be able to answer this. But what we're doing right now is we're actually showing them that this is some of the devices. These are some of the choices that you have for you to store your data. So we make them understand and we make them realize that you have certain choices. But we make our students understand that Monash network storage is only available in Australia. So in Malaysia, we technically really have Google Drive only if it's a private one. Okay. All right. And then last but not least, we talk about retention and disposal. So this is where we draw their attention. How are you going to retain that particular data? How will you dispose of that particular data? So technically, when the students say, okay, I know that my data is contains all the interview of people, people's face, people's voices. How do I store that? So technically what we do is we let them know how you're going to store it. How long are you supposed to preserve it? How are you going to dispose it? Where are you going to archive your data? So technically, what we are actually doing here is we pose questions, we pose guidelines, we pose advice. But at the end of the day, the students will have to decide with their supervisors on how best to save or manage their data, right? So this is technically what we do or what we share or how we share with our students in Monash University. It's not so much that, okay, I give you my data, deal with it. No, we just tell them you're supposed to do this. You're supposed to have a plan. You're supposed to know what you're dealing with. You're supposed to, be mindful of how you, it's like control that data. Be mindful that it follows the FAIR principles. Okay. Right. So now, yes.
Oh, okay. Since we are at the DMP and also the RDM, okay. One question from Puan Mazdah Zakaria.
Okay.
Who developed and prepared the research data management policy for Monash?
For us,
library
it's the
alone
library.
or
Yes,
from
it's
other
the library.
stakeholders?
I think it's like definitely they will have, it's like meetings with stakeholders, so on and so forth. But as you can see, this particular data, it actually belongs, it is written or policy owner is the university librarian. Yes. Of course, with the meetings and so on and so forth, the research and management center, but technically this particular policy is owned by the library. So that is why we provide
but
to the students.
The developing process is with discussion with other parties, like research management center. All right, okay.
Definitely.
Thank you, Ms. Aini.
No problem, no problem. All right. So I think we'll keep most of the questions at the end of the session. What we're going to do right now is it is a hands-on session. Usually this is where we, it's like grab our students' attention. We explain to them or we show them what Bridges is all about and what it can do for us, right? So as I was mentioning earlier, Monash University subscribes or we work with Figshare to come up with the Bridges. So technically the governing body of Bridges is Figshare, but it's a paid subscription by the university in Australia and we rebranded it to Bridges, right? So what Bridges can do for us, very simple. Number one, we let our researcher understand that when you post or when you upload your data and you have a DOI for that particular data, you're actually increasing your discoverability and people will be able to engage with your research. So please be mindful that in Monash, like I was mentioning earlier, if it's an individual work, data belongs to us, the students. So that is why it is up to them to decide to share it, either through copyright or through other license. Okay. Next, we actually get our students, for example, like I was mentioning earlier, if a funder says we need you to publish this, they actually comply with the publisher and funders requirement, right? And like I was mentioning earlier, the data that we upload on Bridges, we have a DOI for it. Okay. And then the good thing about Bridges is we allow up to 650 types of file formats to be uploaded. I don't even know how many types are there. I can't be, it's like mention everything, but you have 650 types of files or formats that can be uploaded. And last but not least, people from around the world can access the research files online from anywhere in the world, right? So technically, this is why we encourage or we want our researchers to upload their information on Bridges as much as they want to or as much as they can. Okay, so I believe that is all from me today. Syahmi will carry on this Bridges part. So I hope that I at least managed to, give some understanding. If you do have questions, we'll be more than happy to answer it after this, right? But right now, let's have an, hands-on session with Syahmi. All right, Syahmi, so I'll stop sharing.
Okay, thank you,
And
Aini. So let me just share my screen first. Okay, so for this part, you can actually go to bridges.monash.edu because anyone can access this because it is like publicly available information and content. But for uploading data, it's only for the Monash users. So for this part, I'm just going to show you two things. One is how you can search for data on our bridges, and another one is how for researchers to upload their data on bridges. So let me just go to the search bar here and do a simple search, which is big data. It's pretty straightforward, pretty simple. So it will go to the search result page. And as you can see, we have like thesis, presentation, data sets, and many more. And as mentioned by Aini just now, bridges can be uploaded like a lot of file formats that you can do so. And let's say if it's like you only want data sets, you only want to see the data sets that are available on bridges, you can use the filters on the left side. If you scroll down here, under item type, you can see here, we have thesis, data sets, figure, and if you want to look for other item types, you can click show more here as well. So if you are interested in other items, you can click on any of the items here. But for today, we'll go for data sets. Okay, and then click apply. So these are all the data sets for the term big data. And let's say if you want to go even more in terms of the licensing of the data sets, because as you know, for researchers, you can share your data sets on bridges, but it is up to you on how you want your data sets to be able to be shared or used by other researchers, meaning that whether it is in for commercial use, whether they can adapt or remix their your data. Here you can use the filter of licensing to know which CC by Creative Commons licenses that you want to filter by. If you're still not sure what sort of Creative Commons licenses that you want to use for researchers, they want to use to share their data, later on I'll show you where you can find a tool or where you can find like a table or graph that is accessible for everyone to know what are those Creative Commons licenses that you want to use. Okay, so let's just pick on one example here. Let's say it's this one, the first one. So if they have uploaded the data on bridges, the data can be shown on top here, and this one's a document file, Word document file. As mentioned by Aini, it can be any other document files or any other file types. It can be like Notepad, it can be from other softwares. So if you have multiple data sets, you can upload it as well. You can either download individually or download all by clicking on download all here. So these are all the information that can be shown on the dataset details page, but I won't go through this yet. I'll just show you how for a researcher to upload a data on their page, their details page, and then we'll go through the details of the metadata record that can be shown on the details page here. Okay, so to do that, I can just go to my dashboard by clicking on my data. So by clicking on my data, you will go to your dashboard and it will show you all the items or data sets that you have uploaded on bridges. As of now, I only have two. One is which is information search skills, which is just a demo that I've done during the previous class, where this is publicly available, where if you go to Google and search for information search skills and Syahmi, you are able to get to this particular item. And another one is research metrics, where it is also a presentation type, item type, but it is unpublished. So if you want to know whether it's published or not, you can click on status, and you can see here, the green circle means it is public, meaning anyone can view, while the gray circle means that it is private. It is unpublished, meaning that only you can see the item that you have uploaded, which is not been publicly available yet. So how do researchers upload their data on bridges? You can just click on create a new item here. Okay, and it bring you to this menu where you have two options. One, you can upload or drag your items or data sets to this top of the page here, or you can just click here to put only the metadata record only. So what does it mean by putting only the metadata record only? So there are some cases where you do have other items published in other platforms, and you do have an agreement with that platform or publisher in terms of where you can publish your items. But you do want to put the information of your data in bridges. So you do have the option of putting the metadata record only, and then putting the links to that item or to that data sets that you have, or journal articles from a previous from that other platform of database to this item here, so that it will be linked to your data sets. So you can do two things. One is the metadata record only, or upload your files here. Then you have to fill in the mandatory fields, which you can see here, the green circles. These are the mandatory fields that you need to fill in order to publish. So let's go with demo title. Authors, of course, it automatically detects my name, Mohammad Syahmi Dzulkarnain, but you can also put in other co-authors. So if you have other co-authors or other co-researchers that you want to highlight in terms of have worked on your projects, you can do so by putting in the name, full email, or ORCID ID if the researcher has an ORCID ID. Categories. Okay, so categories here are the Australian field of research, where it covers the subject categories that somehow your research are focusing on. So let's say if I'm doing chemical sciences and go with organic chemistry. So there are other options that you can choose, and you can also choose multiple categories, so don't worry. But let's say if in those categories, because these are very niche categories from the Australian field of research, some of the categories that you are focusing on may not be in the categories field here. So you do have the option of putting it under keywords, where when you add keywords here, it's for easy discovery. Not only that you can put like the category that it cannot be found in categories, but also simple keywords that can be more searchable by other researchers. So any like basic words, general words that are related to your project or data. Then I choose the item type, which is data sets. So let me just put here biology, and make sure you click enter so that it will process the keywords. And you put in the description. Now the description is a very important section of the datasets details page, where it will describe what this data is all about. Maybe like in terms of the updates of the data, if you do have any updates, new updates that is pertaining to the data that you want to highlight in your details page. So you do have this part here to put in more context of what this dataset, the datasets you're uploading is all about. So let me just put here tests. Again, this is just a demo. So once you have filled in all of the green circles here on top, you do have other optional fields that you may want to consider when you want to fill in your details page for the data sets. For example, the funding, where you put in the grants, any funders for your research projects, you can highlight in this field here. Now, we also have the resource title and the resource DOI. So this is if you have like a journal article that you have published, let's say in Taylor and Francis or Science Direct, and then you also want to link your journal article with the datasets from Bridges. So you can put the title of that journal article here, as well as the DOI that the article has received from publishing in Science Direct or Taylor and Francis, and then you can put the DOI here as well. You may also do so in the references part, where if you do have any DOI that are related to your research projects or related to your data sets, you can link them by putting the DOI, multiple DOIs or multiple links under the references. And another mandatory field that you have to choose is the CC BY license. So here you can choose which CC BY license is suitable for you in terms of how you want to share your data. Now, if for a researcher, we tell them if you're not sure on what type of Creative Commons license that they want to use for their data, is that they can do a simple Google search where they can find like tables or images, sort of something like this, where it tells you like They can copy and publish. It requires attribution for commercial use, yes or no. So by looking at this photo, they were able to know which CC BY license which are suitable for them. We can also ask them to go and search for Creative Commons license tools, where we showcase this website, license chooser, where they will ask you questions. For example, do you know which license you need? Let's say, I don't know. So click on next. Do you want to be credited for your work? Of course, so yes. And then it will go down. Do you want to allow others to use your work commercially? So say yes. Do you want others to remix or adapt or build upon your work? Let's say yes. Do you want allow others to share adaptation of your work under any terms, meaning that when they want to share the edited version, they either can use the same CC BY license that you are using, or they can use other CC BY license. So let's say no, and then click next. So confirm everything that this is appropriate. So on the right side, it will tell you the recommended license that is suitable for your data sets that you want to share under Bridges. So again, there are multiple Creative Commons license tools that are available online. So you just have to find it, and it is very simple to use in terms of like they will ask you questions and they will let you know what type of license are available. Okay, let's say I'm going with, let's see, what was the other one just now? Yeah, CC BY SA 4.0. This one. All right. Other things that we tell the researcher is to whether they want to apply embargo or not. So apply embargo meaning that let's say if the journal article that you publish in other places, in let's say in Science Direct or Taylor Francis, has been published, but you also want to put the data sets in Bridges. But in terms of the agreement that you have with the publisher or with the database or in the platform, they might say that you can put the data sets on Bridges, but you cannot publish the data sets in this grace period, the time period. So it can be like 4 years, 6 years, or even 1 year, or even permanent, depending on your terms and conditions and agreement with that publisher. So if you click on apply embargo, so it's either you can embargo the entire content, meaning like even the metadata record will not be shown, or let's say if you want to make it like only files, so you want the details page to show these details of the data sets, but the files will be embargoed until the end of the embargo period. And then you can put the reason here as well. And in Bridges, if let's say you want to share your the content that you have developed by putting all these data sets here with your colleagues or your supervisor or any other institution, you can generate a private link where you can take this link and then share it with your colleagues and other people, other researchers. But you do not use this link to reference in papers, because there will be some cases where if a researcher, they want to publish an article in a journal, but they want to also reference the data sets or the items that they have published in Bridges. So they will not use this private link, because this private link is only to be shared with colleagues and all. So if they want to, they have to use the public DOI, or the digital object identifier. So let me just disable this and click on reserve digital object identifier. So then Bridges will generate a DOI for the researcher, and this DOI will be used when the researcher wants to reference, put it in their reference. But it will only become active when the item is published. So if you put it, like let's say the item is not, the data sets are not yet published, and then you already put it in the reference, if another researcher or another user go to that DOI, it will just be, not to say useless, you will not be able to get to this page yet. It will have to be, this item has to be published first, then they will be able to get to the data sets that is listed on the reference list. One thing to note also, if because the Bridges gives you a DOI for an item, we do not recommend like for researchers to put in items that already have DUI if they already put in other platforms or any other databases. Those that already have DUI can be uploaded on a different platform that we have in Monash, which is called Pure. So that's why we do have inquiries like, can we put articles in articles that we publish in Bridges? Well, because they already have a DUI there, so it is not suitable for them to just put it in Bridges here because it's like a double DUI thing. So once you have filled in everything, for example, choosing all of this, so you either save changes, so it will be a draft or private, or if you want to publish, then you just click on publish here and publish item. Now, one thing that we will let the Monash researchers know that this is a this is the a storage repository where you will not have the active data that you're working on in Bridges. So this will be your final data form. So once you have confirmed everything, then you'll be able to publish your item because not like not like Google Drive or OneDrive where you can access like a Word document or Excel and everything and edit. Here is just as a works as a storage, and it makes sure that you already have the final content or final data sets ready, and then you can upload in the Bridges here. So once you have published the item, then it will be publicly available for users or any other researchers to able to access this. So let me just show you an example of a good data set that is presented in Bridges, where you have the item here. Again, you have multiple item formats, CSV, Word document, zip file. You have the title, you have the authors, description of the data sets, the funders, the references, meaning the link to any other related works to the data sets. And then also in Bridges, it will show you the usage metrics, meaning how many people have viewed this item, this data, how many people have downloaded this data, and how many people have cited this data. So it's very useful if for a researcher, they want to look at all those metrics, because I think like nowadays, like for an item, metrics are very important for researchers to look into. And if they link their items to the data sets to an article, then you'll be able to get to this article here by clicking on this link here. And as you can see here, this person has developed a very good categories as well as keywords, where you have the standard category that is developed, that is given by the Australian field of research, but also they have like other keywords that are like specific to the data sets, but also have like general keywords like pollination, computer vision, and many more. You do have the license. So license here, this one is CC by 4.0. If you're not sure what is CC by 4.0, you can just click on the hyperlink here. And it will show you, okay, for CC by 4.0, it is you are able to share, you can able to adapt, but you must also follow the following terms, such as giving appropriate credit, link to the license, and indicate if changes are made. So if not sure if which category does the CC by license for this particular data sets, you are able to click on the hyperlink here. And also, if you want to put it in your citation manager software, we do have the option of exporting these data sets into those sort of EndNote, Zotero, Mendeley, Citavi, and many more. Another good one is this one. Again, multiple data sets, title, descriptions, metrics, funders, and this one, this researcher already put in like multiple references, which I've mentioned just now. If you do have multiple references, you can do so. And then here are the categories that they have put. Again, these keywords may not be in the category section, though, so he put it under the keywords here. Okay. So I think regarding Bridges, that's about it. That is like my part in terms of letting the researchers know how they can access Bridges and letting know how to store their data. And for Monash users, they are able to store the data for, let me just escape here for a while. Let's see. Oh, sorry. Okay, for 10 gigabytes. But if there are some cases where, you know, when they're doing all this research and they're using different type of software, and sometimes certain softwares will provide you with like a very heavy formats. So if the researcher wants to request for more storage, then they will be able to request for more by clicking on here. So it's very user-friendly for Monash researchers to ask for more storage. Okay, so I guess that's pretty much it regarding bridges as well as this session. So this is what we tell our students during the Monash doctoral program. So we will, like Aini mentioned just now, we go through all of that, including the checklist. So once they have like understand that why do we have to manage data, what is the meaning of pay data, show them the cycle just now and showing them bridges, they will have like an idea on what they will have to do in terms of managing their research data. And of course, after the sessions, we will have like Q&A sessions, and we do have a lot of interesting questions in terms of like embargo, what does it mean by embargo, how to link to other articles, and so on and so on. But yeah, it's really about just conveying the information to researchers on how to store your data and how you can manage and organize them. Again, we don't, in Monash, it is not compulsory, but we encourage them to use the platforms that we have, because like, of course, we pay for it, and also why not just utilize it? So yeah, I think that's about it. Aini, do you have anything else that you want to add on?
No, I think we can just add on or do anything during the session.
Mr. Syahmi?
Yes.
I think we're about we are on the Q&A session now.
Okay, sure.
Since we are on the bridges, I can say Monash University is moved forward, very advanced. Okay, since you have the platform from the Figshare, and then Monash University subscribe to it, and then develop it and rebrand it to the name Bridges. Okay, you see, so that is in Malaysia. What about, is it the same practice in Australia? They are using the same platform, Bridges?
Yes, they are using the same platform, Bridges, as well. Okay. Because like, it is first for Monash University Australia, then it has been brought up in Monash University Malaysia as well. So any researchers from MUM or MUA are able to access Bridges.
And this is available publicly. Once the researchers or the students upload the data sets in Bridges, they are available. The data sets are available publicly.
Yes, as I mentioned just now, like for my part, I have this one here, which is which green circle, meaning I already published, meaning it is freely available for the online public. So if I click on my profile, even though I have like 3 like items here, so if I click on my profile here, go to, again, this is just like a demo profile. Let me just go to view your public profile. Then it will only show you the publicly available, the one that I already published. So the ones that I've not yet published will not be shown here.
Okay, I see. We have questions actually at the Zoom. Okay, from Puan Mazlan Zakaria. What roles does RMC? RMC here is Research Management Center. Play in RDM for Monash, and who started RDM initiative? Library or RMC?
Aini, will you take that?
Miss Aini or? Oh, okay.
I think Syahmi, you can stop sharing your screen.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. All right. So technically, if you want to say what role does RMC play, we have to understand that we have a research committee in the university. So that research community consists of, RMC, the library, researchers, and lecturers. So for what I can say is, for now, if it's more on the classes and on what researchers can do, library plays like a bigger role. But REU, the Research Excellence Unit in Malaysia, as in Monash, technically they help govern the students, not so much on like having a big role, but technically when they come up with a policy and so forth, yeah, they will have a role, but getting on, who initiates it, who shares it a lot, it really, really depends and relies on the library a lot. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And I think it must come from different stakeholders. It's not like it must come from the research management center and other stakeholders as well in order to develop the research data management. The policy. Okay. And next question from Hashima. Can you share with us the challenges in RDM practices that impact the sharing or using of research data from the researcher?
Can Kwan or Miss Hashima, explain further? It's like, what does she actually mean? As in, it's like impact the sharing and reusing of research data.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah.
Okay. What I mean is that when you started the planning at the library at Monash, so convincing because your focus is mostly on the postgraduate students, right? Okay, so convincing them that it should be shared, okay, and it can be reused, because you have two sets of policies for the students and also for the researcher. So are there any, hiccups in doing the planning, the problems that arise, or the, people that anticipate, okay, there might be problem if I want to share, or, something that hinders them from sharing the data?
Okay, so technically, number one, what you have to understand, Ms. Hashima, in Monash, it is not compulsory for them to have this particular research data management plan.
Yeah.
So number one, they don't share it with us. What we do right now is, you have to understand this. All we do is we just give them general best practices. So we are not the people who they come to if they have like, okay, should I share my data or not? So technically what they do is, this is between them, supervisor, and the school research.
Okay.
Nothing to do with the library. So
I see. All right. Okay.
Yes.
Okay, clear. Thank you.
No worries.
Okay, so let me check whether we have questions from you.
Madam Erni.
Yes.
Okay, it's Amir here.
Prof.
Okay. Yes.
Prof. Amir.
Okay, thank you. Okay, about the use, because the one that you show is bridges. However, I think what mainly available to the users is for Google Drive, Google Drive.
Yes.
Okay, is there a limit of the storage for this Google Drive?
For us, Monash University, because we do have like a subscription with Google, so there is no limit for us.
Okay, so basically, this storage, let's say either Google or this, will be paid by the library or Monash?
Oh no, this is Monash.
Monash.
Yes. Yep.
All right.
So technically, it's like the library, we do not pay for Google, we do not pay for bridges. It's the university as whole in Australia. So for us, it's more on, because we are student facing, right? The library is student facing. So that is why giving out classes, sessions, consultations, mainly is done by the library itself. So technically for the researchers, what we do, or what we usually give them, is consultations. It's like, if we do have a problem, it's like they don't know where to start, what to do, how to access, then we give them that session. But when it comes to storage, when it comes to it's like the whole technical part of acquiring all these places, it's all Monash University. All we're doing is we just give them directions, help, and consultations for the students.
Okay, thank you very much.
No worries, no problem.
Thank you, Prof. Amir. Thank you for joining us. Yeah, it's good to know that Monash University have moved forward to the research data management movement, and inshallah, okay. So we try our best, okay, to do the research data management policy, and we are at the beginning stage right now in IIUM, okay. So I also would like to know about the data management plan just now that Miss Aini shared, okay, and also Mr. Syahmi shared just now. Okay, for the data management plan, actually who developed the data management plan? Is it library or who developed the DMP?
Technically, it's like they don't actually say or manage, or it's like mentioned on the file. But what we understand, again, this is based on the research committee. So it's like the stakeholders will come together, because it's, as you can see, it's like many stages, many other information it's involved or mentioned in the form, right? So I believe it's the managed stakeholders. They come together and they produce that particular checklist. So technically that checklist is there, like I was saying, as a guide for the researchers, because again, because we do not make it compulsory over here. So that is why maybe that is one of the challenges. But if you want to talk about who came up with it, who, it's like made it like, again, that will be the research committee in Monash.
I see. Okay. So is there any questions from the Zoom participants? Okay, from the YouTube, there are no questions.
Okay.
Okay, so